Hello and welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Josh, joined today by Scott Tilford because he's been avoiding his Spider-Man responsibilities and not getting to the end of that story because he's been playing the Call of Duty Blackout beta. And
needs must, mate.
I have some questions for you. First of all, is it any good?
It's really good. Now, one of the things that hit me as soon as I leapt in was that it's. I don't know how much of this is a positive or a negative, but it's almost exactly what you think it's going to be. Okay. This is very much, Treyarch doing a battle royale, like in the most baseline kind of way. Like you drop in, you've got your third-person drop-in style. You drop, you've got the loot, and 60 down to 1 players, and you're kind of the pace of the match is very much the same as it is in Fortnite as it is in PUBG.
Yeah.
Like you can be left sort of just running around in the same kind of ways that you do in those games. But obviously the massive change is that Call of Duty as a game engine is one of the best shooting engines on the planet.
Yes.
And so whenever things kick off, it's just brilliant.
Which I'm sure they do.
And they do. I mean, one of the things that we kind of speculated on was that the TTK would be reduced, the time to kill, like between when you see someone and die. That seems to be contingent on whichever weapon you have. Like, it's not...
Interesting.
Loot doesn't appear to be tiered, or at least it's not colored the same way that it is in Fortnite.
I need to ask you about this because that is the biggest mystery I had coming out of the trailer. How does that sort of loot system work when you drop in and pick up weapons? Obviously, there can't be a tier in the same way it is in PUBG because it needs to be balanced for the multiplayer.
Yeah.
But how do you sort of acquire new weapons and loot? Because I know you can get 3 tiers of armor if I'm...
Well, that's another thing that makes me go like, okay, you guys, you've done a PUBG. Is like, yeah, you've got backpacks and you've got your armor. You're still picking them up and equipping them. And so, yeah, but nothing, it doesn't have a colored loot tier. But the gun that I got, I actually won my first match. I just kind of happened to win it.
Beginner's luck, eh?
It's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, they don't have a colored loot tier, but they do have, like the gun that I had, I literally just pointed it at a guy and took him out. But in the other matches that I did, I was having actual like back and forth firefights with people, and it lasted for a good few seconds. So there's clearly a differentiation on damage, damage dealt by different guns, and you can just hit pause and look at different statistics. You can look at attachments and things like that. But I wasn't especially number crunching at this stage because I wanted to just play as much as possible. So I was just leaping in the matches.
So when you pick up weapons, they're already equipped with sort of attachments and stuff. Like you find those in the world and you have to add them on. Both. Okay.
But I mean, most of the time you're finding something that's blank. Like basically, when you pull up the menu, you've got your gun in the middle and there's like 5 slots on the bottom, and so you end up picking up like silencers or different snub nose attachments or whatever. I don't know my guns, but there's different things that went on the front of it. But I did pick up a silencer at one point, which is really helpful because it means that you don't show up, you don't hit as much by other players. An interesting development though, because all this is, like I said, like for the initial sort of couple of, I don't know, half an hour-ish I was in this first match, I was like, okay, you've done a PUBG, you've done a Fortnite, I'm getting my backpacks, I'm getting my armor, I'm looting stuff, like, okay, you've done it. But the thing that they change is you get power-ups, so you basically pick them up, and you get power-ups for, they're called, like, they've got different names, like Iron Lung or Perception or different things. And one of them, like, say Iron Lung, it means that you can stay underwater for longer.
Right.
So you'd pop that. They take a while to pop as well. They take like 3 seconds to use.
So they're kind of like the perks that you get in multiplayer, just sort of spread out.
Yeah. And it's like, but obviously in Battle Royale, it's way more, it's literally going to help you survive. Like some of them, you can equip a thing that means I think one of the armor boosts is like a minus 40% damage reduction, which is really going to help you in a firefight. Iron Lung, I used that and just stayed underwater while some guys were fighting next to me. There was another one, Perception, which means that you can hear people like better. It just basically means that your radial audio is way more effective. That's really helpful, and that sort of differentiates it from PUBG and Fortnite because you have access to these instant power-ups, and you'll pop them off and use them for a bit. They expire within like about a minute or so, and you try something else and whatever. So yeah, I mean, I like obviously the pace of it. The game engine is the main positive because you're still playing a Call of Duty multiplayer mode. Yeah, and so like. It goes both ways. Like sometimes you land and you do really well and it feels really meaty and tactile, you're knee sliding and you're taking people out. But other times, everyone's died to the angry 8-year-old in the corner of a Call of Duty game. And so some of the matches I just dropped in and just got popped from somewhere.
So I guess the interesting thing there is that you mentioned that game, your first match lasted 30 minutes, which seems far longer than I expected from a Battle Royale game with Call of Duty's engine. Because like you said, although the time to kill has been extended a little bit with armor and stuff, it's still a very fast-paced, Twitch-based shooter. So how does that sort of work with firefights lasting like barely any time at all, and yet the game's still feeling like a substantial Battle Royale?
That is, in a way, going to become its identity because it does have that weird push and pull. Like you have the whole, something that's indicative of a Battle Royale. If you've played H1Z1, PUBG, Fortnite, you're aware that at times you're just going to be left in a field running from place to place.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of that. You just can't get around the fact that players are scattered across a huge map and you're going to be left alone. That's kind of one of the reasons that some people don't like Battle Royale. And so that is there. So you still have that. You're still still at some point you're going to have to make a run for the encroaching storm of the circle,
Yeah.
and you're just left alone. But it just means that whenever things go down, I find myself having like just a bigger sense of confidence when I'm in combat, and just I know how to play Call of Duty way more than I know how to play Fortnite. And it's not to say that I haven't put time into Fortnite, because Jesus Lord, I've put a lot of time into Fortnite.
You have, I've seen you.
But I honestly, Fortnite just doesn't play well. Like, sorry, but it just doesn't. Like, I mean, it's really spongy and kind of floaty, and it's like obviously people can get good at it, but you compare it to like Call of Duty, and it's like, I'm not being a massive Call of Duty fanboy, but you play Call of Duty, and there's just an immediate sense of like, you know, the weight to the way the guns handle. Like, you know that you've got abilities like sliding and shooting and whatever. There's more to Call of Duty on a base level than there ever was in Fortnite, whether that's even being able to go prone.
Well, this is what I want to know. How does the sort of distinctive elements that make Call of Duty, like they showed them off in the trailer, the grappling hook, even weapons, which I guess are new to this franchise in a way, and especially the multiplayer aspect, how do they come into play that differentiate it from just, oh, you're parachuting into a map and you're picking up backpacks and you're getting armor and you're getting loot? How important are those gadgets and those other play styles to the overall kind of experience?
Well, I think that'll be something that'll just come with time, because in the matches that I played, obviously everyone's still getting used to it. I mean, it went live last night at about 6 p.m. our time, UK time. So I leapt in about half 6. So everyone was kind of getting used to it. So there wasn't that much gadget use popping off. It was mainly people using the different power-ups. Because the 3 modes that are in here are solo, duos, and quads. Which is both like littering the map with quad things to drive, ATVs, and you're in groups of 4.
Nice.
So that's a cool thing. But in terms of advancing like the formula, I think people will just develop strategies as they go. Like, I mean, Fortnite's building didn't become a thing until months after release.
That's a good point. I suppose people are just going to jump into this and play it as they would Fortnite or PUBG until they learn the new mechanics and sort of get good with it, like we saw with Fortnite, like you said, and the building.
And that's the thing so far, is that you leap in and you're like, right, I'm dropping in a third person, I'm landing, I'm looting, I'm waiting, and I'm shooting, and that is Fortnite and PUBG and H1Z1. And the differences come from indulging in Call of Duty as a game engine, which we always have when we play it online. But the weird thing with that is that there's like a state of focus that you get into when you're playing Call of Duty, at least if you played it for a long time. You know, you get any online game really, you get in like the zone. Your senses are heightened, your perception is whatever. You're in the zone of that game. You're not really afforded the chance to do that in a battle royale mode, because like I said, you've got the push and pull. You might take 1 or 2 guys out. I mean, a firefight's going to be like 5 people at the most, very rare, unless you happen to go to some really contested area. And so, you know, if you happen to survive that, you're then thrown back into everything's quiet and desolate and move to the next place. And that, I don't know. It's part of the things that one of the things that Battle Royale has to address going forward is that it's more a mode than its own genre.
Yes.
Like, it needs to be bolted onto other games, and it like you're saying about bringing across like, you know, the staple Call of Duty mechanics. Like it does, but in the tiniest of pockets. And so that is enthralling and engaging and intense. Yeah. But I don't know, we'll have to see. I mean, like I said, I'm potentially like cynically saying that maybe it's weighed down by, like, you know, why do you come to Call of Duty? Maybe that's weighed down by actually separating from the combat and running across a field for 20 minutes. So
I have one major question, right?
Go on.
How the hell do zombies work in this map? What is the crack there?
So they're relegated to specific parts of the map. Basically, if you didn't already know, Blackout's map is a stitching together of essentially Call of Duty's greatest hits. You've got Nuketowns in there, and a whole bunch of them, the names I can never remember, but there's a whole load of different ones stitched together. And some of the maps that are in there are the zombies ones. Yeah. And when you go there, brilliantly, the music changes to become more like the zombies maps.
That's cool.
The music changes, the general sort of, like the sound kind of either drops out or the music changes. The tone very much changes. The color palette of those levels, those areas, is different to the rest of it. So you're kind of walking into zombies for the most part. And you can trigger the zombies. The example they gave in the trailer was the guy threw like a monkey bomb and the noise got people to come. I didn't actually manage to trigger any myself, but apparently that is what you do. You can trigger them by excessive noise, or just sort of like, I mean, the weapons are different as well. Like, I managed to get a rocket launcher when I was there, which I guess is more like a staple of the zombie stuff. And so there are weapons in there that you can use, and assumedly if you do that, they're giving you weapons to overindulge in because you'll trigger the zombies.
See, that shift sounds like really, really exciting. I'm sure the novelty will wear off at some point, but walking into a new area, having like the color palette change, the music sort of get more tense, that sounds like a unique element that Fortnite, PUBG doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah, and you know, when they said, oh, we're doing it the Black Ops way, and like we talked about this in another video, but it was always like, well, what does that even mean? And turns out things like this are what that means, because people do have an attachment to the zombies mode, or just zombies in a Call of Duty game, and so they found a way to sort of plug those things in. I mean, no part of the Blackout mode is makes sense. Like, there's no I mean, you basically you come in on like a fleet. It's like 6 helicopters or something, and your guy and the mic guy is just sort of like treat all combatants as hostile or whatever, and you're like, okay, fine. And then you drop in, and there's not even like a storm. There's just a circle. And the guy just says like, oh, there's another collapse imminent, and it's just sort of like, what is a collapse? What is that? But it doesn't matter because who cares? It's because video game. So it's just sort of, there are just stuff. There's just stuff. There's zombies. There's a collapsing thing. There's a monkey bomb. There's a grapple hook. Like it's a game.
I like that. It just frees itself from any shackles, and it just
they don't really seem to care.
Indulges in the creative side. How do the vehicles? How have you tried the vehicles? How do they sort of handle? Because I saw someone, I think it might have been on Reddit, saying that the Jeeps in particular felt like the Warthogs from Halo, which was the vibe I got from the trailer. Is that true?
I wouldn't. Well, the reason they probably say that is because the control scheme is double analog stick.
Okay.
So you're doing the gas on the left and you're steering with the right, which feels weird. But if you think of it like an RC car, it's that.
Right.
So it is strange. I think the reason that they say that is either the control scheme or because they have a good physics model behind it. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's as satisfying or as like enjoyable as the Warthog, because that's like the pinnacle. Yeah. But they do throw you into a third-person perspective, thank God, because I did not want first-person driving. Never in a million years.
It's immersive, man.
It's not even in Half-Life 2. It can go die in a bin in the sea. I don't want to do it. But they put you in a third-person perspective for the new thing, and that just works a treat. You've got Jeeps, you've got wagons. And for me, it's sort of like I said, once you first get in, it pops up the new control scheme, and you're like, oh, what? Like gas on the left stick? But you get your head around it pretty fast. Like I said, just think of it like an RC car and you're fine. You can run people over. Obviously, you make yourself a wider target. Because Call of Duty is tight as hell, you can get shot through the windows, and people can obviously leap on the back of your wagon. And there's all that. But I mean, for me, the meat of a battle royale is solo. I love the whole lone wolf, can you survive the whole thing. So I was mainlining solo, but I did also do duos and I did also do quads. So yeah, but vehicles like really good. I like
it sounds like it has like a lot of depth to the game overall. And coincidentally, it was the first time I think yesterday that PUBG dropped under 1 million players on PC, just in time for the Blackout demo. Do you think this will sort of steal players from that kind of pool, or are they two distinct things?
It's interesting.
Warring or?
It's interesting because, like, I mean, that dip, I'm going to chalk that up to curiosity's sake.
Yes.
Initially. But it is interesting. It's like fundamentally you have to put them side by side. What does Call of Duty offer that PUBG doesn't? And for me, that's a more stable game engine because I don't like PUBG's game engine.
Okay.
Especially on Xbox One, like you're pretty much playing Google Earth. Like, but it's got there. Obviously, the 1.0 release like fixed it a bit, but it's nowhere near as smooth and as refined. It's just not as Call of Duty. And personally, I prefer the feel of Call of Duty to PUBG. It might just come down to two like feels of a game, like Battlefield and Call of Duty kind of thing. But because the structures are nigh on identical. Like I said, you're dropping, looting, and shooting. So there is that. But for me, there's a great mark of quality that comes from Call of Duty that I don't think Bluehole have been able. Is it Blue? Yeah, Bluehole.
Yes.
Have been able to nail on the PUBG side, unless you have an absolute monster PC rig.
Of course.
Because I've only played it a couple of times on PC. I'm coming at it from the console side. So I don't think it's going to. Like I said, it depends what they want. One thing that Call of Duty can't offer is the third person, and arguably one of the most fundamental things you need in a battle royale mode is the rotary camera, which is what PUBG has. So you can scout for threats around you. You can hide and camouflage, and you know that you're invisible. Call of Duty doesn't have any of that because you're in first person. You can't rotate the cam. You can when you drop in.
In a way, I quite like that. It sort of makes it more tense. Like you can't just sort of check out the entire area. It's literally what you can see. I don't know if that comes across in the actual gameplay, of course.
It does, but it just means that, like, say, I mean, it's this thing, like, #bush tactics. Like, PUBG and Fortnite, both, and H1Z1, you can hide yourself in shrubbery to get away from people. If you try and do that in Call of Duty, your vision is just completely obscured. And so, like, it's a worthwhile tactic because you will be completely obscured, but you don't know if your legs are sticking out the back of the bush.
It sounds like they tackle that in other ways, though. Like you mentioned, being underwater while people are having a firefight above. That sort of brings the, not stealth element, but kind of go and cover and try to keep away from battles that you know you probably can't win.
It's a bit Far Cry-ish. It's a bit like how you would approach one of the little outposts in Far Cry. You're just sort of thinking like, well, I see these three guys warring with each other. I'm going to go around and I'm going to mop up the rest of them. Maybe it's just me, but I don't like first-person stealth, and I don't like like I said, first-person driving. I like to know what my character's doing. I like to see all of that stuff. So like the combat obviously works because you're aiming anyway. But it would. I don't know if it would benefit from a rotary camera because I don't know how you would do that in first person. But it is a noticeable difference. And so depending on how much the tactical side of why people love PUBG is because of that spatial awareness and camouflage and all that kind of stuff. That might be able to keep its own little niche of the market or chunk of the market. And Call of Duty, you can just go down the whole balls out intense route.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned sort of the performance of PUBG at launch, released on Xbox. How is this shaping up, right? How is this shaping up? Because we're only a month away from launch, and I know there's still time to sort of polish it out, but is it going to be a sort of not early access thing, but are you going to be jumping into this and things will still be tweaked? Twins will still be broken.
Let me tell you some technical difficulties. So obviously it's a beta, and you're going to be able to file all of what I'm about to say as, well, it's a beta.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll fix it. They do have time till release, and some of these things can be ironed out. One of the things I will say is that the connection, the state of the games was all spot on. I got disconnected once,
right.
Beta, whatever. But in terms of technical capabilities, there was a lot of bugs. I had like a few notable standout things where I was like, oh god, okay. One, I tried to like leap out of the helicopter to drop at the beginning of the map, and I just went through the rotors of another helicopter. I didn't have a chance to do it because like you hit the button to leave, you hit the button for wingsuit, and my character went ugh, like straight away.
I love that.
And I just went through the rotors, and I just she went into the wounded I'm crawling stance.
Yeah.
In midair.
Good.
So I was just in midair crawling, and then eventually she fell, but she just fell in that stance. So I just fell onto the ground. Didn't take any fall damage either, so I'm just still on the ground, just walking like a turtle, while everyone else is having a firefight around me. So that was good.
I love that.
Kinda, but if that costs you the game,
yeah,
like if that was like on like an esport level, and like it's like, well, I don't know, like Ninja is performing and he's managed to go down and he's just forever crawling. So there was that. Like I said, I've had some disconnection issues, just some general stuff with like. It's just sort of, it's mainly, it's when it's obviously trying to sync up the world map when everyone drops. It was what PUBG had the biggest problem with on Xbox, because you have so many people like, instancing the world, and it has to be unique to every player because it's rendering that world for each person. Basic stuff in theory, I can't say I'm not a game developer, but basic stuff in theory. But that's the stuff that it seems to have the biggest trouble with. It's when you could always tell on PUBG when you would land and it would be fine, and then the frame rate would go, and it's like, right, everyone else is landing around me, and it's like, is it going to hold? Okay, it's disconnected again. And I think they've got a little bit of that to work out. And like I said, technical bugs, like weird drop bugs, disconnects, like just animation bugs, like getting stuck crouching for a bit, just bits and bobs. The majority is fine though.
Again, it's sort of an ambitious thing for Treyarch and Activision to do because it's the most players they've ever had in like one server, and of course it's like a beta, so hopefully they'll be able to iron a lot of this out before launch.
Also, you can't get around the time frame. I mean, like Fortnite blew up, like obviously at the start of the year. It's been around for longer, but like the Battle Royale phenomenon is very much a thing from the start of the year, and I don't think that they would have been as reactionary as to go, that's a big thing, we'll do that. I think they had eyes on it for longer. But even then, like to make a mode of this scale, obviously they have a lot of the assets in place, but the time frame of the speed at which they've turned this around,
I know what you mean,
is pretty phenomenal. I mean, you look at the comparison to Battlefield 5, and they're struggling to even get it out the door. So it's like, I wouldn't be surprised.
Battlefield 5 didn't have to sacrifice the campaign mode, did they? I'm still bitter about it.
To be honest, I didn't miss it. I mean, look, Call of Duty campaigns, obviously it's a staple of the franchise and all that kind of thing, but I don't mind them trying something else, because the long tail on Call of Duty is the multiplayer and could be the Battle Royale. So yeah, I'm curious. Just for me, I don't mind a break from the everything exploding Hollywood Michael Bay bull.
You seem overall like really positive on it.
Totally.
Is it going to be something that actually like grabs you at launch? Or?
Yeah, man. I mean, like I'm a man who I like a good multiplayer game as like palate cleansers,
right?
Like in between heavy ass stories. Why are you laughing?
I'm not. Just the way you said, I'm a man.
I'm a man. I play the games, but. I mean, I play Rocket League every night. I like to jump into stuff. Overwatch. I think this would become, for me, it's a staple. The reason I don't play PUBG and Fortnite on a daily basis is because I just don't like their game engines. Yeah. But I do like dropping into this. I want to see how the community takes to it and what different like tactics emerge from that. Like I said, Fortnite's building came months later when people realized that was a viable tactic. And now Fortnite, the final 10 in Fortnite is just towers and fortresses everywhere. So it'll be interesting to see what people do when they start like being able to, see what the grapple hook will let you do and whatever other different abilities that you have access to. So I'm curious, and I've been waiting for a Battle Royale game that just felt amazing to play. So I would say this is definitely it. In terms of like literally the meat of the game engine feels phenomenal to play, as it's Call of Duty always has. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what else they can do. Because,
well, like you said, it's going to be sort of down to the community as to whether this takes off and whether it's going to be included in more Battlefield games, Black Ops games. We've been talking for a long time, so I want to know what you guys think.
To say.
Down in the comments below, have you been enjoying Blackout as much as this guy has, or are you still a bit apprehensive? Either way, I've been Josh.
I've been Scott.
You've been watching WhatCulture, and we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.